Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Rob. Just wanted to touch base really quickly as we're now through the first module and moving on to the second module. First, thank you all, everyone, for all the documents that you got to me, those acknowledgments, the guided notes, and for participating in the discussion board. Wanted to say I was really impressed with the wide range of behavior analytic tactics that we saw coming up in that discussion. I wrote myself a little list here of all the ones that you came up with. There were examples of forward chaining, backward chaining, functional communication training, the use of a token economy, and in a variety of different ways. The use of a token economy, both with regards to behaviors to increase, providing a token specific upon someone exhibiting some desired behavior, as well as the use of token economy with behaviors to decrease, specifically the use of things like providing a token for someone going a certain period of time without engaging in any kind of problem behavior. Also saw response cost, the use of differential reinforcement of other behavior, other kinds of differential reinforcement for students engaging in desired behavior, the use of shaping over the course of time or coming up with ways to be able to thin a schedule of reinforcement, the use of the Premack principle or first then language, as well as incorporating the use of visuals, which is a nice example of prompting, pairing food with tokens, as well as pairing praise with tokens, which are both ways of starting to establish conditioned reinforcers, which play a really critical role in the work that we do. There were examples of modeling and imitation, as well as examples of positive punishment that were pretty cool. I loved the richness in discussion about the relative merits of some of these techniques, ways that you've seen them work really well, in some cases some non-preferred or unexpected side effects that you got from using them or have seen come about from having used them, which is, that's really going to play into your thought process as a behavior analyst. When you're thinking about, okay, what procedure am I going to use here? What are the relative benefits? What are the relative risks or possible side effects that might be inherent in what I'm setting out to use? That's all going to be part of your thought process. Some things that I thought were really cool as we start to really delve into the principles of applied behavior analysis as opposed to behavior analytic tactics is when we talk about things like a token economy, that we can see that whether we're using specific tokens going on a token board, whether we're using pom-poms, someone talked about that, whatever we're using that we're delivering that then can get traded in for some kind of a backup reinforcer, those are all based on that principle of reinforcements, right? So even though they may look different, they're based on the same principle. Whereas on the flip side, we might use things that look the same, like the difference between whether we're delivering a token or we're removing an identical token, that in one case we're dealing with the principle of reinforcement, whereas in the other case we're dealing with the principle of punishment, right? So even though they may look the same or look similar, we've got very different processes at work there. So it's really great that you start to delve into some of the distinction between those things, and when things are different, which differences are kind of superficial and which differences are really significant in terms of what you're doing as far as your procedure. A couple of things that I think are important to keep in mind. One is we're starting to get into these big concepts of reinforcement and punishment, right? I want to make sure that everybody's really clear that when we're talking about reinforcement and punishment, what we're really talking about is some kind of a stimulus change in the environment that happens after a behavior or a response occurs that affects the future probability of that response, okay? So whether it's likely to occur again. So the real key element there when we're evaluating whether something is reinforcement or punishment or neither of those things is, does the stimulus change happen after the response, okay? If a stimulus change happens after a response and that behavior decreases in the future, we've got punishment. If a stimulus change happens after a response and similar behavior increases in the future, we've got reinforcement, okay? If you've got a stimulus change that takes place before the response, we don't have reinforcement or punishment. What we've got is some kind of an antecedent intervention, okay? We're trying to intervene proactively to increase or decrease the likelihood of behavior. But when we're talking about reinforcement or punishment, it's all about that stimulus change happening after the response occurs and seeing what effect it has in the future. So that's really tough sometimes for people to grasp. and is going to be a really important distinction to make as you start to design your behavior analytic procedures. A couple of other things that I wanted to touch base on. First, the guided notes. Excellent job, everyone, on the guided notes. They were filled out very completely with really good responses. What I do want to make sure is I don't want any of you to be getting nervous or freaking out about those guided notes, okay? Really what they are is they're designed for me to be able to know that you're making meaningful contact with the text, okay? You don't have to worry about getting every single fill in the blank exactly right with some predetermined response that I'm looking for, okay? Especially if you happen to get the newer edition of the Cooper text, okay? Things may not line up exactly. It's really just about a way of me making sure that, yes, you're making meaningful contact. So as long as you're putting in solid effort and you're putting reasonable responses for most of those things, there are going to be certain keywords that you're going to be using in those responses. They're going to make it very clear to me that you've been contacting the text, because if you weren't contacting the text, you wouldn't have that information, okay? So as long as you're putting in that solid effort, and I can see that, everyone's going to get full points on those guided notes. The second thing is with regards to the tests that come at the end of each module. There is a time limit on those tests. And that's not designed to make anybody nervous. Honestly, I give more time for those than I used to. But what it really is about is starting to get you ready to take that exam to become a BCBA, okay? The exam's going to have a whole lot of multiple choice questions. It is going to be a timed exam, okay? And so this is again, it's kind of about shaping behavior, right? It's about starting to get you used to what some of those questions might look like on the exam, and to be getting ready to respond under pressure. What I will say is, no one test is worth a whole lot towards your final grade, okay? It's broken up into the 7 modules, and then on top of that, the value of each test is really mitigated and reduced by the fact that you're getting lots of points for doing your guided notes, for participating in the discussion board, so there's lots of ways to get points. So overall, just wanted to say really nice job so far. I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing, and I'm looking forward to what I see for Module 2.